Hi, my name is Steve Antonuccio, and this is my presentation on the history of the Alexander Film and Aircraft Company of Colorado Springs. It's all told in my book. There's no such thing as a typical librarian. I spent 30 years working in public and academic libraries, including 20 years at the Pikes Peak Library District, running their video studio. We had our own channel called the Library Channel. And I did several documentaries as well as develop a collection of historic films. Most of them were provided by the Alexander Film Company, and most of them were also provided by one former employee, Jim Bates, who I'm going to talk about later on in this program. But my book is available for purchase on Amazon.com for $19.95. And if you have any questions, you can email me at anton1492@gmail.com. The wonderful thing about Colorado Springs and the Pikes Peak region is such a beautiful place, and it's always attracted some of the best photographers and filmmakers to Colorado Springs, including the Alexander Film Company, which moved here in 1928. The cover of my book is now the Carnegie Library of Colorado Springs, which houses special collections and all the wonderful photographs and films that were shot in the Pikes Peak region. I invite you to visit special collections at the Carnegie Library to see all these wonderful things that we talk about in this program. It is an amazing place, one of the best collections in the West of films and photographs. And most of the films that you're going to see today are also available on YouTube. The Alexander Film Company was started by these two brothers from Keokuk, Iowa, the Alexander brothers, very different in personality. They were 8 years different in age. The older brother, Julian Don Alexander, and the younger brother on the right is Don Miller Alexander. And of course, to confuse everybody, and I'm going to make this mistake at some point, they both went by Don, J. Don Alexander and Don M. Alexander. And they're very different in personalities. J. Don was the extrovert. He was the salesman. He was the one that was always out front working with the employees of the company. And Don Miller Alexander, the younger brother, he was the engineer. He was a Rhodes Scholar, very intelligent electrical engineer, and he was the brains behind the company. In fact, they lived together their entire lives, not only as kids, but when J. Don got married, the older brother got married, Don Miller moved in with him, and he was almost raised by J. Don and his wife, Gertrude Metz. And I'll talk a little bit later about Don Miller's relationship with Gertrude, but it's kind of an interesting story. And they lived together as adults. In fact, when they moved to Colorado Springs in 1928, they bought this beautiful mansion on Wood Avenue, and J. Don continued to live with Don M. and his wife Gertrude their entire adult lives. But the idea for the Alexander Film Company, at least doing these advertising playlets, started when they were kids and they found this magic lantern in their grandfather's attic. And the grandfather owned a hardware store, and what they did is they set up this lantern and charged people $5 a slide, commercials they would do for different local businesses. And they would run these travelogues that you could purchase for the magic lantern on the side of their grandfather's store, and they would sell advertising. And that's kind of how the business started, although it wasn't really later on until they decided to do it with motion picture film. But this is the introvert, Don Miller Alexander, as a young boy, extremely bright, brilliant mind, and always would bail out his brother. When his brother would sell a project, Don Miller would always come through and figure out how to do it technically. And this is Julian Don Alexander, J. Don Alexander. The salesman, he had a photographic memory. He was a wonderful, wonderful manager of the company. He knew everybody's name by memory, and he was really, like I said, the heart behind the company. He's the reason why the company was successful, because he came up with the concept of producing these advertising playlets. Now, when the younger brother, Don M. Alexander, graduated from college in Spokane, Washington, with a degree in electrical engineering, they started their first business, the Alexander Electric Company. And it kind of set the tone for their business the rest of their lives. J. Don Alexander would go out and sell the different projects, the various businesses in town or homes in town that need electrical services. And Don M. would figure out how to do it. He would do the engineering, and he would make the client happy and do an excellent job. So their business was going very well. It was very successful. And then a client came to them, and they wanted them to do a sales film for them. And of course, Jay Don, being the salesman, he never said no to anybody. He didn't know how to make a sales film, but he told the client, yeah, sure, we can do it. And he went back to his brother, just like he did several times in their relationship. And he said, can you figure out how to do this? And Don said, yeah, sure, I can come up with, I'll research it and find out what we need to do, how we make a film. Because he had a great technical mind. And sure enough, they made the sales film for their client. The client was very happy. And they decided to get into the film production business. And that's when the Alexander Film Company started in 1919. Well, Jay Don was an entrepreneur, extrovert, and he came up with a great idea. It was the beginning of the Roaring '20s and the beginning of consumerism. Automobile dealerships, hardware stores were starting to sell these mass-produced products to the public. And Jay Don saw an opportunity. You know, it was the beginning of the silent film era, and people were no longer going to opera houses. They were going to silent films to watch their favorite stars, Charlie Chaplin, Rudolph Valentino, Lillian Gish. And he saw these people pouring into these movies to watch these films. And he thought, you know, there's an opportunity there. You know, if I could produce advertising, what he called advertising playlets, and sell them to the local companies to promote their products, we could show them between motion picture films, feature films, and we'd have an audience here. You know, everyone would benefit. It would be a win-win-win for everyone. Our company would benefit because we'd be producing these ads for our clients. Our clients, the hardware stores and the auto dealerships would benefit because they would get their products out in front of the people that they wanted to sell them to. And the theater owners would benefit because they would make extra revenue by providing this service by showing advertising playlets. And it worked out very well. In fact, it worked so well that you can't go to a movie today without seeing a commercial, whether it be a movie trailer or product. You go to the movie theater and you're going to see advertising. And that was the concept that began. This is before commercial radio, before commercial television. This concept began with J. Don Alexander in 1919. And it was very successful in Spokane, Washington. It just took off. And J. Don knew that this could work on a national basis, that this concept could work. But the problem was, in 1919, is you did not have overnight package delivery, nor did you have long-distance phone calls. And so he thought, if we're going to provide this service on a national basis, we're going to have to move our company to a central part of the United States. And so they moved their entire operation to Englewood, Colorado. And it became very successful. And he also knew that if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to service my clients, I'm going to have a great sales staff. So J. Don, who was a salesman himself, believed in the power of sales. And he developed this great sales staff. He was very generous with his sales staff. He had one of the highest commission rates. And it really helped his company. And they respected him. They saw in him a salesman as well. And they wanted to please him, make him happy. And he was very good to them. Some of the salesmen had a very large sales territory we called former employee Leland Fights. J. Don believed in flying, and he was the 91st person to be licensed as a pilot in the United States. And so he thought, well, you know, if I can get my salesmen to learn how to fly or to take advantage of air travel to get to their clients and service the whole country, we would be in a better situation in terms of producing these advertising playlets and providing them to the different little theaters all around the country. So he looked at purchasing the state-of-the-art of the biplanes at that time. But biplanes hadn't really improved since the end of World War I. He was very disappointed in what was out there. And so, like always, he went to his brother and he said, you know, I bet we could build a better biplane than what's out there. And his brother said, well, okay, let me take a look and see what I can find out. You know, I can probably hire some good aeronautical minds to help me design this plane. And they built their own aircraft. The Alexander Eaglerock, which was christened here by J. Don's wife, Mrs. Gertrude Metz Alexander, back in 1926. And the Alexander Eaglerock was very successful. In fact, it was the most popular biplane of its time. They sold 893 of these planes. So they had the two businesses going. They had the aircraft manufacturing and the advertising playlets. And it wasn't long before the Alexander brothers were millionaires. And of course, if you're a millionaire and as an extrovert like J. Don Alexander, this is how you dress during the Great Gatsby era, with a fur coat, a big cigar, and a felt hat. And he lived the part of being a millionaire. These are some early photographs of the employees putting together the advertising playlets on 35mm films. This is the aircraft manufacturing plant in 1928. And at this point in their company's development, everything was going great. They were making money. They were hiring lots of people. And then, unfortunately, something tragic happened. Early mass production of aircraft presented unique safety challenges. On April 20th, 1928, an accident in Alexander Industries' aircraft manufacturing plant resulted in 11 fatalities. A spark from an electrical fan in the paint department created the initial explosion and fire. The deaths happened because in the room where they applied this so-called dope, which was highly flammable, the doors swung in, and when this explosion happened, the people rushed to these doors and pushed against them, said Leland Feitz, and 11 people perished in that fire. Following the explosion, they faced criminal manslaughter charges and potential demise of their thriving company. The Alexander brothers were found guilty on 4 counts of violating the Colorado Facilities Act. They were each fined $1,000 and given suspended sentences of 90 days. On April 23rd, the business was shut down for the investigation. So just a few days later, the Alexander brothers moved their entire business to the sleepy resort town of Colorado Springs. Officials of the city made an attractive offer of free land and a beautiful scenic location for motion picture production. And one night, 75 trucks and a crew of employees and volunteers moved the entire operation to 260 acres on North Nevada Avenue. They did continue to manufacture the Alexander Eaglerock in Colorado Springs. In fact, they eventually made 893 planes. And J. Don made sure that the safety standards were much tighter in Colorado Springs because he had a close relationship with his employees, and the tragedy that happened in Englewood, Colorado really affected him personally. Now, in addition to the Alexander Eaglerock, they designed a new plane called the Alexander Bullet in 1929. Now, this plane was one of the most advanced small planes of its time. It could go 130 miles an hour. It had retractable landing gear. It had an enclosed cockpit. And the future looked good for manufacturing this plane. In fact, they made 12 of them at the time. He took the plane to an air show in Chicago. And when he came back, he had a contract to build 50 of these planes. And everything was looking real good. And of course, what happened in 1929, the start of the Great Depression and the stock market crash. And the market for small planes like this completely evaporated. So again, they only made 12 of these planes, but they continued to manufacture the Alexander Eaglerock until 1933. But they did focus on their film production company. And this is the campus of the film production company, probably in the late 40s at the height of their operation. This is around when they had 600 employees. If you lived in Colorado Springs at that time, you either worked for the Broadmoor Hotel or the Alexander Film Company. And their film company was still thriving during the Depression because people were still going to movies. And the advertisers that wanted to stay in business found a much more competitive market, so they still had to advertise in the movie theaters to promote their products. But this picture was taken at the height of the company. This is before television started to eat into their market in the movie theaters. And the next thing I'm going to show you is a promotional trailer that they produced at this time that talks about the operation as well as showing some of the sample commercials they did.
This is beautiful Colorado Springs at the foot of Pikes Peak. 6 railroads and 2 airlines offer fast mail and express service. The Pikes Peak region, famed for scenic grandeur and bright sunshine, is a photogenic paradise. Located at Colorado Springs is the Alexander Film Company, world's largest producer and distributor of short-length screen advertising, employing over 600 people at the home studio. From the administration building, the activities of about 150 field representatives are supervised. In the Mammoth Stage building, the finest of short-length advertising films are produced. And from the specially designed service department building, over 150,000 feet of film are shipped every day to many of the 9,500 theaters which exhibit these movie playlets for more than 24,000 advertisers. Sales of many nationally known products are promoted with Alexander movie programs on a manufacturer-dealer cooperative basis. These films are produced exclusively for the manufacturer and demonstrate his products throughout. The fact that many manufacturers authorize the Alexander Film Company year after year to produce their movies is proof of continued satisfaction. More and more companies are coming to Alexander for the finest of screen advertising, seen every day in thousands of theaters. Now let's follow the production of Alexander short-length advertising from start to finish. First, advertising writers with motion picture experience prepare the scenarios or work with the advertisers on scenarios prepared by them. After the scenarios have been approved, elected, all preparations are subject to the approval of the advertiser's representative assigned for technical supervision. Lights, action, camera, and production is underway. Cameramen who know every trick of the trade work with experienced directors and technical supervisors. Meanwhile, the art department is producing the animations and titles that help the playlet tell the advertiser's story. Here also is made the dealer's name trailer that will follow the playlet on the theater screen. The films from the stage, art, and sound cameras are processed and edited in the Alexander Film Company's own laboratory. Here, more than 1.5 million feet of film a month are developed and printed using exclusive Alexander processes. Coordination of stage, art, sound, and laboratory results in the finest of short-length advertising playlets and identifying trailers, such as those that follow. If you are one of the homemakers who find that adding variety to the daily menu is a problem, here's an inexpensive way to vary your meals. Include fresh, tasty bakery goods. For breakfast through dinner, there are many palate-pleasing delights. Your family will agree fresh bakery goods are a delightful addition to every meal. We believe that only the best is good enough for our customers. Every effort is made to assure uniform quality at prices within your budget. Give us a trial. Colorful potted plants bring outdoor beauty inside the home. Flowers always add a note of cheery brightness to any setting, and a tasteful array of delicate blooms denotes the perfect hostess. There is always a wide variety of fresh flowers to make your home a place of beauty.
Our selection of fresh flowers is unequaled for colorful beauty. When you need flowers, remember that we are always anxious to serve you.
When the family gets together on a project like this, there's real fun for everyone. And for added pleasure, there's a big supply of crystal clear 7-Up in the refrigerator. You see, 7-Up is the all-family drink. There's more fun than ever in your living room when you're the proud owner of a smart new Motorola television set. Motorola is tops in engineering and in styling, too. Motorola gives you the ultimate in performance and a glowing pride of ownership. Smart Motorola cabinets are packed full of amazing new exclusive electronic developments. See Motorola, your eye tells why Motorola's a better buy. Come in soon for a demonstration of the beautiful, brilliant-toned Motorola radios. Let us give you the complete facts, and you'll agree that Motorola is your best buy. Colorado's famous Garden of the Gods, one of the most beautiful of America's tourist spots. And here's the most beautiful way to see America. In a sparkling new Pontiac, the most beautiful thing on wheels. Powerful, smooth, dependable, and economical, Pontiac is low in price. Your own experience will tell you that dollar for dollar, you can't beat a Pontiac.
Equipment, accessories, and trim subject to change.
Come in and get the complete facts about the sensational new Pontiacs, a wonderful car to own, to drive, or be seen in. The beautiful Pontiacs are priced just above the very lowest.
Hiya, folks. I'm from Philco, famous for quality the world over.
I'm Blur. And I'm Smear. We just love television.
Not to ruin it, you mean? I'll fix you.
Get Philco balanced beam television, Peep Squeak. No blur, no smear, just a clear picture. Clear, sharp, perfectly focused over the entire picture area. Yes, Philco balanced beam brings you the finest picture in television. We will be happy to show you the complete line of new Philco radios. Come in soon and see for yourself why Philco, famous for quality the world over, is your best radio buy. A well-organized service department with special equipment and trained personnel schedules and ships the playlets and attached trailers so that they reach the local theaters each week at the proper time for showing. The advertiser has no screening worries. Before closing, let us consider some of the outstanding advantages of motion picture advertising. The illustrations in printed advertising are motionless, silent, like this. We add the voice of radio, the picture comes to life in natural color, and details are shown in billboard proportions. Thus, we combine sound, action, color, and detail enlargement to produce advertising that commands the undivided attention of millions of theatergoers every week as they see a product in use. Screen advertising will sell your product.
At the pinnacle of the Alexander film business, 1951, the company claimed 24,000 advertising accounts, 700 employees in Colorado Springs, and their ads were being shown in 10,000 theaters in the U.S. and 1,400 in Canada and other foreign countries. The Alexander Film Company paid $2.7 million to the theaters, maintained a $4 million backlog of orders, and had $4 million in assets and a yearly payroll of $2.5 million. But just like before, the Alexander brothers had to deal with another crisis in the 1950s, and that was the birth of television. Now, this commercial they were doing is obviously a television commercial on a television set, and there's certain irony in this because their clients were primarily movie theaters, and television cut into the theatrical market at that time. People would stay at home and watch commercial television and not go to the movie theaters. So it became a real challenge for the company. It just about ruined the company when TV came along. There were about 17,000 theaters running Alexander movie ads, and a few years after that, when TV came along, those theaters started closing. The one thing that saved the company during those years was drive-in theaters. It became popular, and during the summer months, business was pretty good, said Leland Feitz. Now, this is the last outdoor drive-in movie theater in Pueblo, Colorado. I think there's only 2 in the state of Colorado. This one's still active every summer. They do great business. And I'm thinking now, during the coronavirus and social distancing, that drive-in movie theaters are going to become popular again because it certainly provides you with social distancing to go to a movie with your family. Now, the Alexander Film Company had an animation department, and they did a lot of animation, particularly for the drive-in movies. They did the 10-minute countdown that counted down and every minute where a commercial was shown until the start of the next feature film. And they also produced other animations to promote the snack bar, like the dancing hot dog and the dancing Coca-Cola. Their animations were very sophisticated, as you will see in the following samples.
boy, now that is true, as you will see, no matter what your age may be.
Sun sweet prunes are fresh from the farm, packed with the grown, they're safe from harm.
Fresh from the farm like this one too, fresh from the farm direct to you. 6 or 7 prunes a day are good for you in every way. Buy Sun Sweet prunes and you'll agree, cooked or raw, they're heavenly.
J. Don Alexander was the heart of the company, and he was well loved by his employees. J. Don always passed out turkeys at Christmas time and hams at Easter time. When the circus would come to town, J. Don would buy a wad of tickets and he would walk through the plant, giving everyone tickets, and it was amazing how he would know how many tickets everyone needed, Fights remembered. He knew this guy had 2 kids and this guy had 3 kids, and he knew all of their names, and he never wanted you to call him Mr. Alexander. He was J. Don to everybody. Now, when Julian Don Alexander passed away in 1953, it was the start of a slow decline for the Alexander Film Company. He was the heart of the company, and you couldn't really fill the void with anyone else. One thing I remember very well was the last conversation I had with J. Don, and this was only a few days before the man died, remembered Leland Fights. We've been talking about his life, and I said it must have been awfully wonderful to have lived a full life and turned an idea into an organization that supported many hundred families and to have made friends all over the world. I will always admire you for what you have done. And then he said, Leland, we have been total failures. And that really surprised me because I thought he was a great success. He said, if we played our cards right and held on to the aircraft business, we would have had a factory that reached from here to the Air Force Academy. He died disappointed. And he was right. Had they been able to hold on to the aircraft company with the start of World War II, just like Boeing and the other companies, aircraft companies at that time, they would have had a fat contract to make military airplanes. But unfortunately, they weren't able to continue the aircraft company after 1933. So when J. Don Alexander passed away, Don M. Alexander, Don Miller, the younger brother, knew that he wasn't the personality to run the company. So he kind of withdrew from managing the company, went to the board of directors, and the company was sold several times to different companies. And it struggled in the early 60s. Here is the administration building that unfortunately has been torn down. It doesn't exist today, but a beautiful, beautiful building. This is a remote production van that they used in the 1960s. In the 1960s, they used co-eds from Colorado College as their models for their television commercials. And you'll see a little later on, I'll show you commercials that were shot for 7-Up and other products that will feature these students. Now, in the history of the Alexander Film Company, they had not produced a single feature film. They didn't want to compete with their best customers, the movie theaters and the film producers of that era. But in 1961, they made their first feature film. The film is called Anatomy of a Psycho, and it stars Ronnie Burns. Ronnie Burns is on the right, the actor on the right there, and he's the son, adopted son, of George Burns and Gracie Allen. And he's actually a pretty good actor. This film is not a good film. In fact, the reason why it was called Anatomy of a Psycho is that Anatomy of a Murder was the top film back then, and Psycho was the other top film. And they thought if they combined the titles and made it Anatomy of a Psycho, that it would make this film successful. And it was not successful at that time. This film was shot in several locations around Colorado Springs, so it's kind of a time capsule of that era. Ironically, this film became a cult classic. In fact, you can see the entire film on YouTube. What is interesting about this film is that the screenplay was co-written by Ed Wood under an alias, which is not surprising since the film is so bad. Ed Wood was famous for writing and directing what was considered the worst film ever made, Plan 9 from Outer Space. His life story was told in the film Ed Wood, starring Johnny Depp and Martin Landau. The following is a montage from the 1961 film Anatomy of a Psycho.
What is this? Gag? Who are you guys? Oh, come on, say something. You picked on the wrong guy. Maybe you don't know who I am. My father's a district attorney. You could get in a lot of trouble.
Somebody's coming! Get out of here!
Class. Something you wouldn't know anything about.
Class, huh? Here's something we both understand.
Hi.
Hi, Jack. You want some punch or some food? No, I know some of the kids around here. Why don't I just walk around?
Well, at least you could have worn a tie.
Chet, have fun.
Oh, Chet, old man. Glad you could make it.
We thought you might turn us down or something. Yeah, well, thanks for inviting me, Arthur. I wouldn't have missed this whole thing for the world.
Well, thank Mickey. It was his idea. Bring a date?
No, my girl's a little unpredictable. You never know where she might show up.
But you've got to keep your eyes open, old man. Have you two met?
Yeah, I think so. I think I've seen her around.
It doesn't matter. I know he did what he had to.
Listen, Pat, will you marry me?
Yes, Mickey.
Well, now I'm on my way, and my bag's all packed. I'm gonna get me a girl.
Let me show you the grounds now, huh?
All right, wait. Give me a minute to freshen up. You wait for me here.
Well, just a second. Why don't you use Mother's room?
All right.
Everywhere. Well, now I'm looking over here.
You can't stand the thought that I can even look at somebody else.
Don't flatter yourself, baby. I hate him. but not because of you.
Says you can't be trusted.
I'm crushed.
No, Chet, I don't want you anymore. I want this. All of this.
Pebbles will bounce off these windows just as well now, won't they?
No, Chet, you would not hear.
Why not? I'm sure Arthur won't mind. He's a swell guy.
I'm gonna go round, 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 everywhere, everywhere. Right now I'm going into Spain, and I'm going into France.
Sandra? Sandra!
Arthur, let me explain, please.
What's troubling you, Arthur boy? I'm gonna kill you.
No, Arthur! Arthur, don't, please. Please don't fight with him. Chet! Chet, leave him alone. Arthur! Arthur! Arthur, please, please let me... Arthur! Arthur, darling, I'm sorry. Arthur, I didn't mean it. Arthur, please. Darling, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. Arthur! Arthur! Arthur, please! Arthur! Arthur! Please! Please, Arthur!
Don't you come after me! Don't!
Chet, come down here.
Get away from me! I didn't do nothing!
You need help, Chet.
Get away! Get away!
You've got to face the truth, Chet. Come on down so we can help you. You've got to face the truth, Chet. Come on down.
Get away!
Chet, don't force me to use this. I don't want to. But I will if I have to.
You better not hurt me, Mac. You better not hurt me, because I didn't do nothing.
I don't want to. But I'm a cop, and I will if I have to.
You better not hurt me.
I won't hurt you, Chet.
You better not. I didn't do nothing.
Come on, Chet. Come on, boy. You can trust me, Chet. I promise you we'll help you, Chet.
Don't you hurt me.
You can trust me, boy. I'm not gonna hurt you, see?
You better not hurt me.
No, I won't. Let's go.
You better not.
No, I won't hurt you, Chet. You can trust me, you know that.
Mac. Mac, help me, Mac. Mac.
I'll help you, Chet. You'll get help.
Now, the magnificent collection that is housed in the Pikes Peak Library District, and certainly all these films are also uploaded on YouTube, was provided by this gentleman, Jim Bates. Jim Bates and I were good friends. He worked for the Alexander Film Company from 1936, I think, till 1965. He was trained as a cinematographer coming out of Colorado Springs High School. In 1942, he volunteered for the Army Signal Corps and became a combat photographer. I did a documentary on Jim Bates in 1994, the 50th anniversary of D-Day, and he had jumped at D-1 with the 82nd Airborne and photographed the war in Europe till the fall of Berlin. And he was at every major battle, including the Battle of the Bulge and the most famous tank battle ever filmed, the Battle of Cologne. That footage that he shot is on YouTube, and it's dissected by several documentary filmmakers. It's very famous. I'm going to show you a sample of that, and the entire documentary, Scenes of War, can be seen on YouTube as well. Jim also shot still photography for the U.S. Army Signal Corps, and one of my favorite photos is this photograph he took of Winston Churchill right at the end of the war. In fact, this photo was taken at the German Reichstag after the fall of Berlin. He was touring the Reichstag with Russian soldiers. Jim asked Winston Churchill if he could take his picture in the Jeep, and Winston Churchill was very generous and let him take a couple photographs. Now, I love this particular photograph. In fact, it's in my office at home, and it's a look of relief that the war is over. It's not a look of celebration. For the British people, hundreds of thousands of civilians and soldiers died during World War II, in addition to millions of people who died during the war. And you can see on Churchill's face, he's not celebrating. He's actually showing a sense of relief that this horrible war in Europe is over. Now, in 2019, Adam Makos, a very respected, well-known, best-selling author of nonfiction military books, wrote a book called Spearhead, and it covered the tank battle that took place at the Cologne Cathedral. It followed the life of Clarence Smoyer, who was the gunner on this tank. He's a young man, 19 years old, who's at the top of the tank that's not wearing a helmet. Well, Clarence Smoyer is still alive, and they decided to come to the Pikes Peak Library District. They visited the Carnegie Library because they wanted to honor the life of Jim Bates. They brought a print of this tank, and they donated it to the library, and I got to meet Adam Makos as well as Clarence Smoyer. It's an excellent book. Spearhead was on the New York Times best-selling list, and they couldn't be more gracious when they came to the library and donated the print. The book is incredible. I mean, it really is. It's nonstop action, which was the life of Clarence Smoyer, who had the opportunity to be a tank gunner on this new modern American tank. Since it was the most modern American tank at the time, Clarence Smoyer was constantly at the front lines and was almost in every battle you can imagine. This next clip is from my documentary, Scenes of War, on the life of Jim Bates, and it does include the Battle of Cologne.
On March 6, 1945, the second day of the 3rd Armored Division's battle for Cologne started from the railroad underpass at the West Railroad Station on Benlorstrasse. Machine guns set up on rubble piles protected the column along the track area to the north.
There are moments in a person's life when their training, talent, and heart are tested to the extreme. Jim Bates' finest hour was during the Battle of Cologne. For a veteran combat photographer, it was an opportunity to test all his skills as a soldier and as a photographer. It was his success in Cologne that earned him the Bronze Star.
The German tank is found and the T-26 hits its marks. The German tank is hit squarely, and as the gunner tries to escape, the second shell cuts off his leg. The driver and assistant clamber to escape as another shell is fired. Burning alive, the gunner lies over the edge of his coffin on wheels while his companions run for cover. And the concussion from the 90mm gun is so great, camera steadiness is impossible.
Cologne was the next, I imagine, the greatest part of my life. And still, of course, going across the valley, the whole bit was just one great long push and shove and push and shove. And when the Germans did give, why it was almost a job of catching up with them sometime. But when we got to Cologne, it was again another problem. The Germans had their back against the river, but around the Rhine River. And it was a long, long battle of street fighting. Constantly, they had plugged the underpasses over with Windlorstrassen, at Windlorstrassen with old streetcars, and it was a completely different type of fighting now than it was in the woods and in the timber and out on the plains. Now it was a house-to-house thing. The tanks had to drive cover for the men. The men would sometimes have to go out and lead the tank through. By this time, we had a new T-26, and the T-26 had a 90 millimeter with a cuts compensator on the front of it. It was an amazing piece of machinery. It was heavily armored. It was just, it was a far cry. The Germans saw it really never lived to bring back the story, because that was it. They never lived long enough to take the story back as to what this tank was about. It was just so far ahead of the old Shermans that it was unbelievable. So I thought, well, I was just a little bit impatient, and I got out, and I think the German tank, the Tiger tank, saw me, because he started to turn his turret around, and about that time I heard the tank coming up, our T-26 coming up. And the very second that he stopped, I was shooting by that time. And in the film, you can see the armor-piercing shell going through the bottom of the picture on the still shots. The first shot went in and cut the legs off of the tank commander in the Tiger. The second shot, and immediately the driver and the bow gunner, the trapdoors flew open, and they climbed out. But a second shot the shrapnel had gotten them too. One fellow fell over a bicycle that was laying there on the ground, the remains of an old bicycle, and he died right there. But the driver got around to the back side of a building, and he died there. The gunner, the tank commander that had his legs cut off, of course, just laid on top of his tank and burned up right in front of the camera there. It was just unbelievable. That thing was burning even the next morning. After it was all over, there was still smoke coming out of it because it had so much ammunition and whatnot in it. It was just everything that could happen to me, photographically speaking, did happen that day. There was everything from street fighting to house-to-house fighting, everything that could happen, and consequently, it really was the crux of me getting a Bronze Star. That whole period of time that I worked with the 3rd Armored Division, they were so grateful for all of the coverage that I had given them. I hate to see the 3rd Armored Division going into fading away to nothing now, because that's one of the divisions out of Germany that's being banished right now, and they did such a beautiful job. General Rose was the head of the 3rd Armored Division, and the General Rose Hospital in Denver, the Veterans Hospital, is named after him.
A very tired and silent crew it was that dealt the death blow to the German tank, to help prove to a nation crazed with power that its men and cities could be dealt with in the same manner as it had previously dealt with Poland and Russia when the war was going its way. The tall spires of the Cologne Cathedral now mark only the grave of a dead and battle-torn city.
But Jim Bates designed this helicopter mount in the early 60s, which really helped the Alexander Film Company because they were on hard times at that point. But it was like Steadicam. It was a gyroscope mount that they could do rock-steady aerial shots from a helicopter. And they were hired by many motion picture companies to do these sweeping film shots. Of course, this is before drones. Now drones can do it so easily. But he designed this helicopter mount, And some of the major advertising companies hired the company, Alexander Film Company as well, to shoot these films. Now, one of the most famous commercials that they shot was the 1964 Chevrolet convertible. It was on top of a rock in Moab, Utah, called Pinnacle Rock. It was a very dramatic 2-minute commercial that aired at that time on Bonanza on a Sunday night, which is, was the most popular TV show of its time. And of course, back then when there was only 3 networks, you didn't have much choice to watch anything else. But it was an amazing commercial that I'm going to show you later. They took this poor, frightened 19-year-old model and put her in a Chevrolet that was brought up with a helicopter. They took the engine out of it to lighten it on top of this Pinnacle Rock, and then they did some sweeping shots with this helicopter mount of this poor little poor model in this car, 19-year-old model, waving at the camera and to promote this Chevrolet convertible. But it's a remarkable spot. You may remember it. I mean, I remember it from when it first aired. And for the time, of course, the Mad Men area, Madison Avenue, it was a major, major television commercial. And Jim was there on the shoot. In fact, he told me a story about the model was so terrified that they had to leave a technician with her who was hiding behind the car. And you'll see in some of the shots where he's hiding behind the car, and I'll point that out to you when I run the commercial. But at the end of the night, or at the end of the day, at the end of the shoot, the wind started to pick up. And it looked like that the model was going to have to spend the night in the Chevrolet with this technician. Well, the technician's wife had come with him on the shoot, and she was very upset. She says, "No way is my husband spending the night in that car with that woman." And fortunately, the wind died down, and they were able to get them both down from the car. But again, one of the most remarkable 2-minute commercials made in that era that was shot with this mount made by Jim Bates.
In a class of its own, it stands alone. Chevrolet for 1964. No other automobile offers so much of what so many people desire. With styling that brings you back to look and look again, Chevrolet stands alone. Alone in pure dedication to beauty and relaxation. Alone in jet-smooth luxury. Here is space for freedom of movement, enclosed in a Fisher body carving, in motion, as quiet as space itself. In a class of its own, Chevrolet for 1964 stands alone. See your Chevrolet dealer.
Now, there are a few Alexander Eaglerocks that have been restored. This particular one is in the DIA terminal, in the United Wing, and it's a beautiful plane that they restored. There's another one at the Seattle International Airport. There's also a restored Eaglerock in my home of Pueblo, Colorado at the Weisbrod Aircraft Museum. The Weisbrod Aircraft Museum is near the Pueblo Airport. And it's a magnificent museum. There's a lot of different aircraft, including a B-29. So if you're in Pueblo, I recommend you going to the Weisbrod Museum and seeing the Alexander Eaglerock, as well as the many other military planes they had there. And this is the distinctive Alexander Eaglerock logo on the tail of the plane. Now, unfortunately, there's no Alexander bullets that still exist. Even though there were 12 made, none of them were restored. Now, Don Miller Alexander died in 1971. He lived another 18 years beyond the death of his brother. And there's an interesting story that I found out later after doing these presentations to different community groups. I always told people that Don Miller Alexander was an introvert. He never got married. He lived a very quiet life. But I found out that was not the case, that after his brother died in 1953, he was still living in this beautiful home on Wood Avenue with his sister-in-law. Well, he was very devoted to his sister-in-law. In fact, she became an invalid around the time that her husband died. And Don helped her get dressed, helped her move around the house. And they were very concerned that people would talk that two single people were living in the same house, even though they were brother-in-law and sister-in-law. Because of that, they decided to get married. It was almost a marriage of convenience so that they could live together and he can continue to help her out. But he lived with her. They were married until her death in 1970. The house had a beautiful ballroom. I got to tour the home. The current owners had a tour for the community, and it is an amazing mansion. This is the gravestone for the Alexander family at the Evergreen Cemetery in Colorado Springs. You can see J. Don, who died in 1953, Gertrude, his wife, who died in 1970, and their son, Don Jr., who died in 1986. Don Miller decided to be cremated, so he's not buried at the family headstone. The Alexander Film Company actually existed until about 2015. The former owners, Andy and Regina Hutchinson, were very helpful in terms of preserving the history of the company. And Andy and Regina were very generous about transferring the historic films to video that we found in the collection. The following films and commercials are examples of some of the productions the Alexander Film Company did from the 1940s to the 1960s.
Here at the foot of Pikes Peak lies beautiful Colorado Springs, home of the Alexander Film Company. 6 railroads and 2 airlines offer fast mail, express, and transportation service to and from this famous vacation city. The Pikes Peak region, known for its scenic grandeur and pleasant year-round climate, makes an ideal location for the world's largest producer and distributor of theater film commercials. Over 600 people are employed here in Alexander's modern 18-acre plant, a completely self-contained film production studio. From the administration building, the activities of 150 field representatives are supervised. In the mammoth stage building, skilled camera crews are busy day and night producing theater commercials for 25,000 clients every year. To facilitate assembly and pre-screening of the merchandising films, this specially designed service department building was erected. From here, over 160,000 feet of film are shipped every day to many of the 12,700 theaters which regularly exhibit Alexander movie ads all over the world. Now let's follow the steps in the production of an Alexander film series for use in a manufacturer-dealer theater campaign. First, advertising scripts prepared by our writers or by the client's agency are approved by client and Alexander production staff. Then the cast is selected. When an advertiser's representative assigned for technical supervision is present, all preparations are subject to his approval. Lights, camera, action. Production is underway. Cameramen who know every trick of the trade work with top-notch directors and technical crews. Meanwhile, the art department is producing the dealer's individual trailer, which is produced to conform to the advertiser's specifications. This trailer will appear in the advertiser's selection of theaters, attached to a different playlet each week. The art department also produces all animations. This is a portion of an animated cartoon, as an audience of millions would see it in their local theaters. Have you wondered just how a short bit of animation like this is made? We will show you with a graphic film illustrating the process as only film can do. The animator makes a series of pencil drawings in which he creates the characters and plots the action of the cartoon. This is done above glass illuminated from the underside. Sheets of precision-punched, translucent paper are placed on the registration pins so that the animator can see several drawings at one time, thus visualizing the desired action. Singly, the drawings show a series of still pictures. These few pictures will not be enough to make a complete action. Now, an in-betweener goes to work. His job is to make a series of pictures that will join into smooth action the basic drawings made by the animator. Notice how the in-between drawings connect the two extreme actions drawn by the animator. When the pencil work is finished, the drawings go to an inker who traces the paper drawings onto transparent celluloid sheets called cells. The cells are now placed on the register pins over the pencil drawing so that the inked cell will match the original. A painter completes the job by applying opaque color to the back of each cell. When the finished cell is laid down in the background, we understand the use of transparent celluloid. The figure of the cell now appears to be a part of the background itself. The inked and painted cells, along with their backgrounds, are now taken to the camera room where they are shot on film. The camera operator will shoot each drawing separately without lifting the background. Thus, we show a series of actions of the characters while the background remains the same throughout. Now that the animated picture is on film, we can best show how the series of separate still drawings will make up a smooth, animated motion picture by first showing each action separately for 2 seconds. Speeding it up to a rate of 1/2 second per drawing, we see a jerky but definite action. Now we run the camera at its normal speed of 1/24 of a second per frame, and all the single drawings blend into a pleasing cartoon picture. This is the way the cartoon will look when projected at the rate of 1,440 pictures a minute on the theater screen. The sound department is busy at the same time recording the voice and sound effects that will be heard when the completed unit appears in the theater. The films from the stage, art, and sound cameras are processed and edited in the Alexander Film Company's own laboratory. Here, more than 1.5 million feet of film a month are developed and printed using exclusive Alexander processes. Coordination of stage, art, sound, and laboratory results in effective short-length advertising films. Sales of nationally known products are promoted with Alexander movie ad programs placed on a manufacturer-dealer cooperative basis. The films are produced exclusively for each manufacturer and demonstrate his product throughout. The fact that clients like these, year after year, authorize Alexander to produce new series of advertising films is proof of their continued satisfaction. More and more companies are coming to Alexander for cleverly conceived, superior advertising that sells. Films such as the following are seen every day in thousands of motion picture theaters.
Presenting the car that makes history by making sense, the 1959 Edsel. Here's real gas economy. Choose your own engine. Economy 6, Ranger V8, Express V8, and the mighty Super Express V8. And you can choose from 10 exciting models. Soundly engineered, solidly built, and priced with the most popular 3. The all-new 1959 Edsel.
It takes Jeep traction to tackle the tough jobs. The four-wheel drive Jeep utility wagon gets you through, good weather or bad. Carries 6 people comfortably or 1,000 pounds of cargo. Wide rear opening lets you load bulky objects with ease. A flip of the lever and you are in two-wheel drive for on-the-road travel. Work or play, when the going gets tough, the Jeep utility wagon gets you there. Drive it today.
7 little Indians, 7 dirty sheets. Only one washing machine can wash all 7 at once. It's the new Philco Automagic high-frequency automatic washer. You can't wash 7 sheets in an ordinary agitator washer. Yet with 6 sheets already in, the Philco Automagic has washing power to pull in the 7th. High-frequency, 600 washing actions a minute. Nothing else like it. Get a Philco Automagic high-frequency washer.
First, furnish your home for beauty. Every room needs an accent piece, something different in texture and color to dramatize the entire decor. Here, the accent pieces are this chest and these black chairs. See how they stand out next to the warm finish of the other furniture. First, furnish your home from Home Furnishing's wide selection of style and price ranges. Come visit us. We want to give you a decorating idea book based on the film you've just seen and many more.
There's a soda fountain right on your own kitchen table. All you need is ice cream, glasses, straws, and several bottles of 7-Up. First, put a scoop of ice cream in a glass. Pour a chilled bottle of 7-Up gently down the sides and add straws. A 7-Up float. Delicious. Make 7-Up floats from your favorite ice cream or sherbet. For a real thirst quencher, nothing does it like 7-Up.
In summary, here are some of the outstanding advantages of Alexander film advertising. To the frozen, silent illustrations in printed advertising, we add the voice of radio. The clear, sharp picture comes to life in beautiful color. Details are shown in billboard proportion. The combination of action, sound, and demonstration in a big picture, one that cannot be dialed out, produces advertising that commands the steady, undivided attention of millions of theater goers every week as they see a product in use. Alexander Film Advertising will sell your product.
Great Sand Dunes, Colorado. Miles and miles of sand, so desolate only the timeless winds call it home. No place for a car. But no problem for a Chevy Corvair. By special permission of the United States Department of the Interior, the Corvair Monza, the four-door Corvair sedan, and the new Corvair Lakewood wagon took on this mountainous desert. The Corvairs dig in. Thanks to their rear-engine traction, the Corvairs claw their way through the sinking, smothering sand. Climbing, climbing, climbing to the top. Incredible performance and traction, plus sure handling. Take them up, up, over, and down the towering dunes. Amazing performance? Sure. All that's needed is one desert and 3 cars. Three Chevy Corvairs. Whatever you expect of an automobile, from the suburbs to the Sahara, if it can be done, Corvair's the car that can do it.
Presenting the car that makes history by making sense, the 1959 Edsel. Here's real gas economy. Choose your own engine. Economy 6, Ranger V8, Express V8, and the mighty Super Express V8. And you can choose from 10 exciting models. Soundly engineered, solidly built, and priced with the most popular 3. The all-new 1959 Edsel.
The question has often been asked, why do men climb mountains? The classic answer is, because the mountains are there. Another and more reasonable explanation is that we wish to pit our strength, stamina, and endurance against the greatest challenge Mother Nature can place in our path. Meeting that challenge makes us champions. Chevrolet trucks long ago established their claim as champions of the road. In 1956, they again proved their championship caliber by conquering the grueling Alcan Highway to Alaska. A tougher road test couldn't be found. A new challenge will have to be off the road, cross-country, straight up the hill. Pikes Peak, the most famous mountain in America, thunders its defiance. And Chevrolet accepts the challenge. A Chevrolet truck will ascend to the top of Pikes Peak off the road without using the auto highway. 2 Chevrolet Task Force pickup trucks with Thriftmaster engine and 4-wheel drive are selected and certified as production models, equipped only with items available through any Chevrolet dealer. With 2 experienced mountain drivers at the wheel, the trucks leave the garage and go through scenic Colorado Springs to begin the colorful drive leading to the actual jumping-off point for the cross-country ascent of the peak. Past the historic gold mining town of Cripple Creek and through narrow abandoned railroad tunnels, they travel the seldom-used Gold Camp Road to the beginning of the actual climb. Then, it's off the road and across open terrain to Pikes Peak or bust. And there she is, ominous, foreboding, an incredible challenge. But even before reaching the base of the mountain, there's a lot of hard territory to cross. Deep in the interior, the route leads past many a reminder of the area's gaudy past. How many nuggets would a sourdough have offered for one of these trucks? Or, more to the point, what would the owners of this once fabulous $30 million gold mine have given for the power and dependability of a task force champ? And on they climb, powering their way past fantastic rock formations, around crystal clear mountain lakes, and straight into virgin timberland, through chassis battering terrain, and up engine straining grades. The trucks keep on going, keep on climbing, offering conclusive evidence that Chevrolet trucks have that never-say-die dependability needed on every job. Here, in terrain far worse than anything encountered in normal truck operations, there is ample proof of Chevrolet's strength and stamina. Here is power, durability, driving control in the roughest kind of terrain. Here is Chevrolet championship form on display. Thus, the power-laden task force trucks push relentlessly on through the untraveled timberland and into the upper reaches of the great Rocky Mountain Forest. Pausing only long enough to select the best route forward, then continuing onward, upward, to the base of the peak itself. More miles of wild, untamed, seemingly impassable country. And the Chevrolet expedition breaks out of the timber in the rarefied atmosphere of better than 12,000 feet above sea level. Although rapidly thinning air continues to add additional strain to the engine, no loss of power is noticed during any phase of the tortuous ascent. This amazing performance record being established on Pikes Peak proves beyond a doubt that Chevrolet Task Force trucks are rugged, able to take it, more than a match for the toughest jobs. And now, the peak is actually in sight, better than 2,000 feet straight up, so near and yet so far. From here on, it will take all the skill at the driver's command and all the power and stamina that only Chevrolet Task Force trucks can deliver. And on this note of achievement and anticipation, the drivers halt to make camp for the night. At dawn the next morning, they break camp, and by prearrangement continue together in a single truck for the final and most difficult part of the assault. Now well above 13,000 feet, the drivers literally find themselves living in the clouds. But they keep moving, gaining altitude, climbing right above the clouds, and emerging to find the most formidable obstacle yet encountered, a vast field of impossible appearing boulders and rocks. Their courage, however, is soon reinforced by the appearance of a small party of mountaineers who have come down from the peak to help guide them over the most precarious stretch of the climb. And soon they are achieving the impossible, conquering the unconquerable, actually driving where not even mules and donkeys dare to tread. Rocks and boulders sledgehammer the truck unmercifully during this phase of the ascent. But engine, chassis, and cab components prove to be every bit as tough as the terrain they are conquering. At the most impossible places in the rock field, progress slows, but continues by means of the winch installed on the truck. Again, the champion displays his tremendous power by pulling himself up over the incredible terrain by the proverbial bootstrap. On they push, forcing engine, transmission, axles, drive lines, every component part to labor under tremendous stresses. This truck has to be good to take it. It has to be a champ to make it. It does, straight up the face of the mountain, all the way to the top. 14,110 feet up in the clouds. Both drivers and observers are amazed at the performance of the Chevrolet Task Force truck, which stood up to the unprecedented challenge in every way, making the almost impossible ascent without mechanical difficulty of any sort. Despite the tremendous pounding to which the truck was subjected, post-run inspection shows no true damage to any mechanical part. Both front and rear differential housings were severely hit and scraped, yet withstood every blow and continued to perform at top efficiency. In fact, the only real damage sustained by the truck on the whole record-breaking climb was a dented running board and squashed hubcaps. An astounding record for an unparalleled feat. When it comes to meeting the challenge, they just don't come any tougher than this off-the-road cross-country ascent of Pikes Peak. And yet a production model Chevrolet pickup truck went all the way to the top in spite of every conceivable natural hazard. It traveled where no truck has ever gone. And while most truck needs may not include driving straight up the side of Pikes Peak, this amazing truck performance spells good news for all truck users. Because here is conclusive proof in action that wherever or whatever the job, Chevrolet has the stamina, has the power, has the guts to meet the challenge.